Okay, so here we go with my look at the vintage G.I. Joe / Cobra Toxo-Viper. This figure, I believe, originally came out like at the tail end of the original G.I. Joe run in the 80s. Came out, I think, in 88 or 89. So yeah, it was kind of at that tail end there, and when they started kind of getting a little more funky and creative with the characters, their costumes, the coloring, those type of things. Before we get into the actual figure himself, I got the file card here, and we'll take a look at the file card here and just kind of read that off here. So the Toxo-Viper here is the Cobra Hostile Environment Trooper. It says here, Cobra Toxo-Vipers are thrust into battle situations mainly to create a foul and unsuitable environment, thus giving the upper hand to Cobra. Their battle suit is moderately airtight and resistant to most solvents. If the suit was made completely impervious to atmospheric dangers, it would be awkward, slow-moving, and most importantly, expensive. Cobra leaders feel that the Toxo-Vipers should be encouraged to get their job done as quickly as possible, unburdened by heavy and expensive equipment. And then down here we got the little thoughts on the Vipers, I guess, from the G.I. Joe team. It says, needless to say, being a Toxo-Viper is not something a Cobra Trooper aspires to be. In fact, the assignment is meted out as punishment for major offenses. The mere threat of being transferred to the Leaky Suit Brigade is enough to keep even the most obstreperous, or whatever, troops in line. Obstreperous. Anyways, big word there. But yeah, so that's what the background is on the Toxo-Viper there. They're basically environmental, like hazardous waste, I don't want to say disposal because they're actually doing the opposite. They're, introducing it into the environment. So they're like, chemical warfare troopers, basically. With that done, let's go ahead and zoom in here and take a look at this guy a little up close. And if we kind of pan up here a bit, there you go. He's got a kind of nice, somewhat funky looking helmet on there. I actually like this guy. In fact, I had this guy as a kid. This isn't the original figure that I had from my childhood. Actually, I picked this one up at a local small G.I. Joe convention they had here. So yeah, I lost mine way back when. But anyways, I like this guy. I think the color scheme's kind of cool. I think the helmet and just the design and the ideal behind them is pretty neat. I like most of the Viper guys, especially those that kind of came out around the end of the 80s there on the G.I. Joe series. So I always thought they're very unique and well designed. But anyways, here's a look at his helmet here. Now this helmet is removable. So yeah, the guy's head will be underneath here. But yeah, see, it's like a kind of a weird environmental helmet, breathing apparatus. Again, the color scheme's kind of funky. It's got like this orange thing. It looks almost kind of like a bird's beak in a way. So yeah, it's very, very unique looking. And like I was saying, you can just pop this off here. Let's kind of pan out just a little bit. There we go. And there is the actual Toxo-Viper character or person there. Mine's a little dinged up here. It's got a little paint scratch there right on his nose. So yeah, it looks kind of ugly there. But yeah, and you see he's kind of got like a little breathing apparatus here, it looks like, also, or kind of like a ski mask type of thing going on there. But yeah, it has a little helmet here, so this is removable. It just pops right on over his head. And if we look further on down here at the rest of his suit, you can see he's kind of got like these like hoses and tubing in here. These look like little like air vents or something, so he's breathing in the air. He's got these kind of like funky, kind of pink looking kind of gloves, kind of a hot pink almost. Everything else from the waist down is pretty plain. There's no real weapons sculpted in anywhere on him. He's got his little like kind of like moon boots looking like here. So those are kind of, okay. They're not the greatest. But yeah, somewhat a little bit of a plain figure too. Let's take a look at his backpack here. Let's kind of pan down there. There we go. I like the backpack here. You can see here it's got these two like air hoses to suck in the air or blow out, I guess, chemicals also. It's got like a little fan in here and some little tanks, I guess, to mix his chemicals. So yeah, it looks like what, based on his description would be called for as far as equipment goes. Excuse me. Here's his little gun here. I kind of like this gun. It's kind of unique looking, I think. got this boxy front part, you know, just the handle way back here and a foregrip here. Some ways though the weapon kind of sucks in that it doesn't sit in his hand quite all that well, and it's holding it's kind of difficult because this is so way out in the front, this pistol grip here in the front, that you can't really have him kind of like hold both of these handles and point the gun or the weapon forward. So he's got to kind of hold it like this, which kind of looks kind of silly with it hanging out way out there. So it would have been nice if maybe they could have moved this down a little bit into the middle. The other thing that he did come with as far as an accessory is he came with one of those typical, you know, rubber hoses here, and this would connect back here. There's a little post right there, so you would just, you know, plug that in there. Let's see if I can attach that, and it would peg in on the back here of this weapon or rifle or whatever it is. I've never been a big fan of these rubber hoses on the G.I. Joe figures here. I always felt they either impeded the motion of the weapon when it's in the character's arms or hands, or they're too long, and in my opinion on this figure they're just that. It's too long, it doesn't, you know, it hampers the motion of the character or the toy. It kind of makes sense, I guess, in that there he is there with it that attached. Let's kind of pan out a little bit. There it is attached, so it makes sense because, you know, this is, I guess, what he uses to spray his chemicals and things like that out into the battlefield. So yeah, he needs some kind of a hose, but me personally, I always would just take these off and just, you know, pretend it's there or use my imagination that it's actually there. I wish they would have gave him like a shorter hose, maybe it wouldn't have been so bad, but yeah, that's kind of a long hose, I think. Again, I've never been a big fan of these. And they always, you know, they always kind of either put pressure on it because they're like, they get bent up or whatever. And, you know, the parts where they connect are so easy to break off. I mean, like this thing here is so soft and flexible. You know, you keep fiddling with it, you probably pop it off and you can't even use it anyway. So I'd always just take them off as a kid. But, yeah, so he's the typical 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joe figure from the 80s. So he's got that standard articulation, which basically you had a head movement here, which was kind of like on a ball joint. So this one's a little limited on the motion. You could basically go up and down and kind of rotate it side to side. Shoulders rotate 360. Pivot up and down. This one's actually still a little tight. So this joint here is actually pretty tight. Kind of got like the Kung Fu grip thing going there. Rotate around 360, and they can bend in and out. No wrist movement. The waist's on the little like O-ring or rubber ring inside there, so that can pivot all around. The legs there can pivot around, kind of like a ball joint almost. Bend at the knees, and there's no foot or ankle articulation. So yeah, it's, you know, pretty much your typical G.I. Joe figure as far as the level of articulation goes. But overall, I think this is a cool figure. It's something that's kind of unique. I like the costume design, the colors, and the overall ideal behind the figure. I think he's a great addition to your G.I. Joe or slash vintage G.I. Joe collection, especially the Viper collection or Viper Squad or whatever it is. So yeah, I'd say if you could find this guy, pick him up. Should be fairly cheap. Try and find them complete if you can. And that's my look at the G.I. Joe slash Cobra Toxo-Viper.